What would you do if you walked into your own home and heard your wife moaning a man's name that wasn't yours? Because that's exactly what happened to me. I came back early from a work trip, ready to surprise Lauren with flowers, and instead, I got blindsided so hard it felt like someone ripped the floor out from under me. Those sounds upstairs? They weren't just random noises. They belonged to Derek, my stepbrother, the same lowlife who spent my entire childhood breaking me down, now in my bed with my wife. 5 years of marriage evaporated in 10 seconds. Trust? Gone. Pride? Shattered. And before I tell you what happened when I opened that door, hit subscribe, because this story only gets darker. Before that night, if you'd asked me about my life, I would have told you I was one of the lucky ones. I met Lauren back in college at UTA. We were that couple people rolled their eyes at because we looked too happy. Late-night tacos after exams, study dates in the library where we got more laughing done than studying. She used to fall asleep on my shoulder while I pretended to read. We got married right after I landed my job in logistics. Moved into a quiet suburb outside Dallas, 2-story house, small yard, the kind of street where kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. Friday nights were our thing. Same booth at the local steakhouse, her glass of red, my beer. We'd talk about trips we'd take one day, kids we might have when the time's right. She painted in the extra room upstairs, sun hitting her canvases just right in the afternoons. I paid the bills, handled the stress, told myself that's what a man does. I really believed that. I really believed us. I gave her everything. And standing there later, listening to her with another man in our bed, 5 years felt like they'd just gone straight down the drain. Thing is, when a marriage explodes like that, it almost never comes out of nowhere. Looking back, the warning signs were lined up like billboards, and I just drove right past them. Her phone started living face down on the table. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then came the new Face ID, new passcode, the casual, "Oh, work stuff, you wouldn't care." Lauren suddenly became a gym rat overnight. Classes 3-4 times a week, always needing to stay a little longer, always losing track of time. Then there were the girls' nights. She'd dress a little nicer, a little more perfume than usual. She'd say, "I'm with Chloe, don't wait up." But there were no tags, no photos, no drunk selfies like before. Just silence. I'd sit on the couch, beer in hand, talking myself down. She wouldn't do that. She's not that kind of woman. I'm overthinking. But trust doesn't just vanish in a second. It erodes. Mine was crumbling, inch by inch. And one night, as she was out with the girls, a text popped up on my Apple Watch, a man's name I didn't recognize, followed by a sentence that made my stomach turn, and then it disappeared before I could read the rest. After that disappearing text, something in me shifted. I didn't say anything, didn't start a fight, I just watched, waited. A few weeks later, work sent me to Houston for a couple days. Trip wrapped up early, earlier than anyone expected. On the drive back up I-45, I decided I'd do something nice. Grab Lauren's favorite flowers from a gas station on the way, swing into the driveway like some cheesy movie husband, show up early, hug from behind, prove to myself everything was still okay. I pulled the pickup into our driveway, saw her car already there. Good sign, I told myself. The bouquet sat on the passenger seat, and I actually caught myself smiling as I walked up to the front door. The second the lock clicked and I stepped inside, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, but not in the peaceful way. Shoes tossed in the middle of the floor, a throw pillow on the ground. Then I saw it. A man's dress shirt, half crumpled, lying across our brown leather couch, not mine. Wrong size, wrong brand. Before I could process it, I heard it. The headboard upstairs slamming against the wall, rhythmic, violent, and my heart just dropped. There's a special kind of silence that happens when your world starts to crack. It's loud and quiet at the same time. That's what it felt like as I stared at that shirt on the couch, flowers still in my hand, knuckles white around the stems. I should have walked out right then. A smarter man might have. But I started climbing the stairs instead, one slow step at a time, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Halfway up, I heard her, Lauren's voice. "Oh God." Not in prayer, not for me. The bedroom door at the top of the stairs was pulled almost shut, just a sliver open. The curtain by the hallway window moved with the air from the ceiling vent, light cutting across the carpet like a line I couldn't uncross. That's when the smell hit me. Cheap cologne, sharp and foreign, sitting on top of Lauren's vanilla perfume. It turned my stomach. I reached the landing, breath shallow, and walked up to the door I'd opened 1,000 times before without thinking. This time my hand shook when it wrapped around the knob. I pushed it just enough for the gap to widen, and Derek looked straight at me. People always ask me, "What did you do when you saw them? Did you swing? Did you yell? Did you drag him out of the bed?" I did none of that. I froze. Derek's eyes met mine for a split second, wide and shocked, like a kid caught stealing. Lauren didn't even see me. She was still crying out his name. That was enough. Something inside me just shut off. It was like someone flipped a breaker in my chest. I didn't say a word, didn't slam the door. I stepped back, turned around, and walked down those stairs one last time. Flowers still in my hand, suitcase by the door where I'd dropped it. I grabbed the handle, walked out, and closed the door behind me as quietly as if I didn't want to wake anyone. The second I hit the driver's seat, my hands started shaking. I fired up the truck and pulled out of that driveway like it was on fire. I didn't have a plan. I just pointed the nose toward I-35 and drove. Next thing I knew, I was at some random bar off the highway, beer overflowing the rim of the glass onto the sticky wood. Numb. Completely numb. I don't remember how many beers I had. Enough to blur the edges, not enough to wipe the pictures out of my head. Her voice, his face, our bed. It played on a loop like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. The bartender gave me that look older men give each other, the one that says, "Yeah, I've been there too," without a word. I paid my tab, stumbled back out into the Texas night, and there it was, a cheap Motel 6 glowing in sickly blue neon. I pulled in because I had nowhere else to go. Home wasn't home anymore. It was just a building where my wife slept with my stepbrother. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and old cigarettes, yellowed spots on the ceiling, thin blanket, buzzing AC. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, staring at nothing. My phone lit up on the nightstand. Lauren, over and over. I let it ring until it stopped. I couldn't hear her voice. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just needed the pain to stop for a minute. So I opened my voice memos, hit record, and whispered to myself, "Enough is enough." I woke up in that Motel 6 feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Same clothes, shoes half off, phone still on the nightstand. A sliver of cheap daylight was squeezing through the faded curtains when my screen lit up again. Lauren. This time, I answered. Her voice came through bright, casual. "Hey babe, how's Houston? Trip going okay?" I just stared at the stained ceiling for a second. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Long day. What about you? What did you get up to last night?" She didn't miss a beat. "Oh, nothing much. Stayed home. Glass of wine. Started a new book. I crashed early." She lied without blinking. No stumble, no hesitation, like she hadn't just been in our bed with my stepbrother, like the night before never happened. I didn't call her out. I just listened, jaw clenched, knuckles white around the phone. We hung up after some small talk that tasted like poison. Then I checked the time, looked around the room, and it hit me. She thought I was hours away in Houston. In reality, I was sitting in a cheap motel bed just a few miles from our house, drowning in a truth she was still pretending didn't exist. After that call, I couldn't go back to work and pretend to be normal. I texted my boss, said I'd caught some kind of bug on the road. He told me to rest up. If only it were that simple. Days started blending together. Greasy burgers from drive-thrus, warm beer from gas station coolers, the same four walls of that motel room, TV on with the sound off, my thoughts loud enough. First came the shock, then the humiliation, then the questions that don't have clean answers. Why her? Out of all the women in the world, why her? And why Derek? The one guy who'd spent my childhood reminding me how small I was, now proving it all over again in the cruelest way possible. I turned off my location, muted group chats, stopped answering almost everyone. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't ready to hear advice or pity or, You'll be okay. But in that fog, something solid started to form under the anger. I realized feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to fix a damn thing. I didn't just want to leave her. I wanted the truth, all of it, in black and white where nobody could spin it. So I made up my mind. I was going to protect myself, protect what I'd built. And to do that, I needed proof. I picked up my phone, opened the browser, and started looking for a private investigator in Dallas. Hiring a PI wasn't just about catching a cheating wife. It was about not letting Derek win again. And to understand that, you've got to know where he started. My mom died when I was 14. Cancer. One day she was there, the next the house felt hollow. A year later, my dad married Linda and we moved into this fresh start place in Fort Worth. New house, nicer neighborhood, but cold as hell on the inside. Linda was all smiles and sweetness when Dad was around. "Honey, how was school?" Fake concern, perfect timing. The second he left the room, her face dropped. Any little thing I did was disrespectful or ungrateful. And Derek? Her pride and joy. He'd laugh at the way I dressed, the music I listened to, the way I spoke to my dad. No joke was ever just a joke with him. One afternoon, I was walking down the hallway past the linen closet. Derek decided I was in his way. He shoved me hard into the doors, shoulder first. Shelves rattled, towels fell. That house never felt like home, I remember thinking, sitting there on the floor, staring at the wood grain up close. And that was just the beginning. School wasn't much better. We both went to the same high school, and Derek made damn sure everyone knew who he thought the real son was. Out on the practice field behind the bleachers, he'd toss a football with his buddies and yell across the grass, "Hey, look, it's Loser Miller," loud enough for everyone to hear. If I walked by, he'd shoulder check me, laugh it off like roughhousing. Teachers just saw brothers playing around. They didn't hear what he whispered. At home, every argument somehow became my fault. If I snapped back once out of 100 times, Linda would blow it up in front of my dad. "He's hostile, Mark. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't try with Derek." She had a talent for twisting the knife. Eventually, Dad made me go to therapy. "You need help processing all this," he said. And honestly, I resented him for it. I thought I was the problem in his eyes. Then we sat in Dr. Brooks' office. Old guy, calm eyes, more silence than words. He listened to me talk about Linda, about Derek, about that hallway shove and 100 other things. And for the first time, in that quiet little room, my dad didn't cut me off. He didn't defend them. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "I didn't know it was that bad." Right there, in therapy, he finally stood on my side. It didn't erase the scars, but it was the first time I felt like I wasn't crazy. Growing up the way I did, I made myself a promise. Nobody was ever going to walk all over me again. Not a stepbrother, not a stepmother, not a boss, not anyone. If I was going to have a life, I was going to build it with my own 2 hands. So I buried myself in school, then in work. Late nights, early mornings, saying yes to the tough projects nobody wanted. I climbed my way up until kid who got shoved into a hallway closet turned into project manager in charge of real money and real people. Bills paid on time, decent truck in the driveway, little house in the suburbs, health insurance, 401k, the whole package. That might not impress everybody, but for a man who grew up feeling like a guest in his own home, that kind of stability is no small thing. A man's got pride. Mine was simple. Work hard, love harder, protect what's yours. When Lauren came into the picture, it felt like the missing piece. She was soft where my life had been hard, warm where my past had been cold. For the first time in my life, I thought I finally had a real family. Thing about pride is, it can make you blind. You work so hard to finally have it together that you don't want to believe you could still be that guy getting played in his own house. The cracks didn't show up all at once. They slid in sideways. Lauren started dodging intimacy. Not every time, just enough to notice. "I'm tired. I've got a headache. Maybe this weekend." Normal excuses, until they become the norm. Then she changed her iCloud password. "Got locked out," she said, laughing it off. I offered to help. She brushed it away. "Nah, I got it." Her phone lived a little closer to her, screen turned just a little more away from me. The downtown studio got busier. Extra hours, extra late nights. Clients want to view pieces in person, she'd say, rolling paint off her fingers like that explained everything. I told myself it was stress, a phase, married life. I reminded myself respect matters, and part of respect is not snooping, right? Then one evening she sent me a selfie from the studio. Cute smile, paint on her cheek, canvases behind her. But in the glass frame over her shoulder, just barely visible, was the reflection of a man's arm around her waist that definitely wasn't mine. That reflection in the frame wouldn't leave my head. I saved the photo, stared at it until my eyes hurt, and finally accepted what I already knew. This wasn't in my head. If I was going to walk away, I wasn't doing it blind. I called a divorce attorney a buddy at work recommended, Scott Reynolds, downtown Dallas. The kind of guy who shakes your hand once and already knows what questions to ask. He listened while I laid it out. The late nights, the gym, the girls' nights, the selfie with the mystery arm. He didn't flinch. First thing, he said, calm as a surgeon, you need to protect your assets. House, retirement, savings, anything with both your names on it. He slid a legal pad across the desk. Write it all down. By the time I finished listing out accounts and property, my stomach was in knots. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was war. We'll need proof, Grayson, he added. Hard proof. Judges don't care about gut feelings. I nodded. I'll get it. Scott leaned back. You don't have to. I've got someone. Name's Mike Lawson. He's very good at finding the truth people try to hide. That's when this stopped being suspicion and became a plan. A few days later, I met Mike at a quiet coffee shop off the highway. Mid-40s, beard, worn leather jacket, the kind of guy who's seen too much and doesn't waste words. He let me talk, didn't interrupt. When I finished, he just asked, "Where does she say she goes? Gym, studio, friends?" We laid out her routines. The downtown art studio, the gym she suddenly loved, the nights she stayed late. Mike wrote it all down. No judgment, no surprise, just data. I'll put eyes on her, he said. You go on with your life like nothing's wrong. You don't tip your hand. Understood? I agreed. Didn't like it, but I understood. A few days after he started, my phone buzzed with an email. Subject line, activity, Lauren. First photo, grainy telephoto shot from across a parking lot, Lauren walking out of the gym, ponytail up, leggings, hoodie, nothing crazy. Second photo, same lot, different angle. A guy leaning against a car, muscular, trainer type. Third photo hit harder, clearer. Lauren standing between his arms, her face tilted up, his hands on her waist in that familiar possessive way. His name in the report, Ryan Cooper, personal trainer. My hand shook as I scrolled. This wasn't a feeling anymore. This was evidence. Catching her with Ryan on camera should have been enough. For most guys, that would be the whole story. For me, it was just the start. A couple nights later, I noticed a text preview flash on her phone while it was charging on the kitchen counter. Just a first name, Chloe. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same time? My stomach tightened. That was the exact night and time she'd told me she had a late art session downtown. I sent the screenshot to Mike. He didn't respond with words, just more files, new email, new photos. Lauren walking into a building with Chloe, close, laughing, shoulders touching. Another angle, their hands brushing, then fully locked together. It was gut-wrenching in a different way. Not just one affair, not just some gym guy. A whole double life I never even saw coming. Then Mike sent one last file, a short clip from a security camera in an elevator. Lauren and Chloe standing side by side. Chloe glances up, Lauren smiles, and they start kissing like they've done it 100 times. I just stared at the screen, then quietly turned my phone off. Everything I'd believed about my marriage collapsed. People hear a story like this and think it's all about the physical part, the cheating, the bodies. But that's not what cut the deepest. What broke me was how cold the lies were. How easily she looked at me in the eye and talked about wine and a book while she was sneaking around with 2 different people. Home is supposed to be the one place you can exhale. For me, it had turned into enemy territory. The bed, the couch, the hallways, all of it felt contaminated. I wasn't just losing a wife, I was losing my sense of safety in the one space I'd worked my whole life to build. And then there was my pride. I grew up being treated like an outsider. I clawed my way into a life I could be proud of. To have that life turned into a joke behind my back? No. This wasn't about revenge sex or shouting matches. This was about respect, about not letting people walk over me and smile while they do it. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to quietly fade out of my own story. Our 5-year anniversary was coming up. Instead of canceling it, I started planning it very, very carefully. Once I decided the anniversary wouldn't be a celebration but an execution of the truth, everything in me went cold and focused. I picked a steakhouse just outside Dallas, the kind with a private room in the back. Dim lights, heavy doors, no easy exits. I called ahead, told them I needed space for family, a nice setup, nothing too fancy. They were happy to take the reservation. Money spends the same whether a marriage is alive or already dead. Next came the guest list. My dad, Linda, Derek, her parents, a couple close friends, just enough witnesses to make sure there was no rewriting of history later. On my laptop, I organized everything Mike had sent me. Photos from the gym, the studio, the elevator. I printed a few choice shots and kept the rest in a locked album on my phone, hard proof, lined up like bullets. Then I wrote out, word for word, what I'd say. No yelling, no dramatics, just clean, sharp facts. Let the truth do the damage. Finally, I slid the signed divorce papers into the inside pocket of my jacket and zipped the cover over the suit bag. A buzz on my phone. Reservation confirmed for Friday, 7 p.m. Showtime was officially on the calendar. The days leading up to that Friday felt unreal, like I was acting in a play everyone else thought was real life. I still kissed Lauren on the cheek in the morning. Still said, "Have a good day," as she grabbed her keys. I even picked up flowers one afternoon and set them in a vase on the kitchen counter, just to keep the mask from slipping. She laughed, thanked me, wrapped her arms around my neck like nothing in our world was broken, like she wasn't splitting her time between two other people behind my back. She was cold as ice where it mattered most, in the truth. But on the surface, she played the loving wife perfectly. And I let her. I watched the way she moved through the house, through me, like she was untouchable. I checked the time more than usual, not because I was bored, but because I was counting down. 3 days, 2, 1. Friday morning, as I was getting ready for work, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I knew too well. Derek. "See you Friday, big bro. Should be a fun night." He had no idea just how fun it was going to be. A couple days before the anniversary, I asked my dad to grab coffee with me. Just us. No Linda, no family noise, no distractions. We sat in a small booth at this old diner he likes, 2 mugs of burnt coffee between us. He took one look at me and didn't bother with small talk. "You all right, son?" I could have lied. I'd done it my whole childhood, told him I was fine when I wasn't. This time I just shook my head. "Not really, but it'll be over soon. Just one more night." He held my stare longer than usual. I could tell he was replaying his own mistakes, all the times he didn't see what was happening in our house when I was younger. "You planning something?" he asked quietly. "I'm planning the truth," I said. "At the anniversary dinner. I'm done being the one who gets blindsided." He nodded slowly, eyes hardening in that way I remembered from the therapy office with Dr. Brooks. "I'm with you, son. Whatever happens that night, I've got your back." When we stood to leave, he put his hand on my shoulder and gave it a firm squeeze. It felt like armor. The night before the anniversary felt like the night before surgery. You know, something's about to be cut open, you just don't know how bad it's going to look once it is. I pulled my suit out of the closet, the same one I wore at our wedding, laid it on the bed, checked the pockets, pressed the wrinkles out. Inside jacket pocket, the manila envelope with the signed divorce papers. No going back after that. On my phone, I opened the hidden album. Photos from the gym, the parking lots, the studio, the elevator clip of Lauren and Chloe kissing like teenagers. My chest hurt watching it, but my hand didn't shake this time. I backed everything up to the cloud and a spare drive just in case. Time to take back control, I told myself, out loud. Then I looked down at my left hand, at the ring I'd slid on with so much hope 5 years earlier. I twisted it once, twice, feeling the groove it had worn into my skin. I took it off and dropped it into a small wooden box on my dresser. Closed the lid. Tomorrow I'd wear the suit, but not the ring. The night of the anniversary, I drove to the steakhouse feeling like I was heading to my own execution. From the outside, it looked warm and harmless. Brick walls, soft yellow lights, country music leaking out when the door opened. Inside the private room, they'd hung a little banner that said, "Happy 5th anniversary, Grayson and Lauren." Balloons, white tablecloths, candles. It would have been sweet if it wasn't all a lie. People trickled in. My dad clapped me on the back. Her parents hugged us both. A couple of my friends shook my hand, joked about 5 years already. I gave them a thin smile, just enough to pass. Then Lauren walked in. Cream dress, hair curled, perfume strong enough to cut through the smell of steak. She slipped her hand into mine like she hadn't blown our life apart. I let her. Not yet. Derek and Linda came last, of course. Derek in a too-tight shirt, smug grin already on his face. Linda with her arms folded, eyes scanning the room like she owned it. We ordered, ate, made small talk. My watch ticked louder in my head than the music. And then I heard it. Derek's fork tapping his glass. Clink, clink, clink. Derek stood up with that fake casual swagger he'd had since high school, raising his glass like he was the best man at a wedding. "Well," he said, grinning, "who would have thought you two would last 5 years, huh?" A few people laughed, the polite kind of laugh you give when you're not sure if it's a joke. I felt Lauren stiffen beside me. She shot him a look, a tiny shake of her head under the table. He ignored it. Of course he did. "I still remember when Grayson first brought Lauren around," he went on. "I thought, no way someone like him pulls someone like her." He gestured toward me with his glass. "I mean, look at her. She's way too good for this guy." More awkward laughter. Linda sat back, arms crossed, that little smirk on her face. She was enjoying the discomfort a little too much. I stayed quiet, checked the time, let him run his mouth. Derek leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to make people lean forward. "I always thought it should have been me," he said. "And, well, turns out, I was right." He paused, smiling, then dropped it. "Because she's been sleeping with me this whole time." The room exploded into gasps and whispers. For once, it wasn't just my world that shattered. Everyone's did. You could have heard a pin drop after he said it. For a second, nobody moved. Forks were hanging midair, mouths half open. My dad was the first one out of his chair. "What the hell are you talking about, Derek?" His voice had that sharp edge I'd only heard a few times in my life. Lauren's parents stared at each other, then at her, like they'd just realized they didn't know their own daughter. A low wave of whispers rolled through the room. Friends, cousins, people who'd seen us as the solid couple. I just sat there, breathing slow. I'd been waiting for this moment. Not this exact version of it, but the truth was finally out in some form. Lauren went white. "He's drunk," she stammered. "He's just trying to ruin our night." Her eyes begged me to jump in, to play the loyal husband one more time. I looked around the table, at my dad, at her parents, at Derek soaking in the chaos like it was attention he'd earned. Then I stood up, cleared my throat, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "He's telling the truth." The air shifted after I said it. Every head snapped from Derek back to me, then to Lauren. She shook her head frantically, eyes wide. "Grayson, stop. This isn't funny." I didn't look at her. "And he's not the only one," I added. You could see the words hit people like a second wave. Her mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. I pulled my phone out, unlocked it, opened the album I'd named Proof. No speeches, no theatrics. I just tapped the first photo and held it up. Lauren in the gym parking lot, wrapped up in Ryan's arms, his hands on her waist like he owned her. Then the next. Her walking into the downtown building with Chloe, fingers intertwined. Then the elevator clip. Short, brutal. Lauren and Chloe pressed together, kissing like nothing else in the world existed. Gasps went around the table. Someone swore under their breath. I handed the phone to my dad, and it started its slow trip around the room. Every new set of eyes saw the same thing. Nobody could pretend this was a misunderstanding anymore. Lauren snapped the second the video made it halfway around the table. "You're lying!" she screamed, voice cracking. "This is edited. This is fake." She lunged across the table, trying to grab the phone out of her dad's hands, but he held it away from her, eyes glued to the screen like he was seeing his daughter for the first time. Her mom grabbed her wrist. "Lauren," her mom whispered, panic creeping in. "Is this true?" For a moment, Lauren just stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild. She looked from me to Derek to the photos on the phone like she was searching for some exit that didn't exist. Some angle, some excuse, someone to jump in and say this was all a misunderstanding. Nobody did. Her friends avoided her eyes. My dad stared at the table. Even Linda had gone quiet. Lauren's lips started to tremble. She opened her mouth like she was going to speak, but nothing came out. The fight drained out of her all at once. She folded in on herself, hands over her face, shoulders shaking as she started to sob. For the first time in a long time, she couldn't talk her way out of anything. While Lauren was falling apart, Derek just stood there holding his wine glass, breathing hard like someone had punched him. For a guy who'd just bragged about sleeping with another man's wife, he suddenly didn't look so proud. He turned on her. "You said I was the only one," he hissed. "You told me you were done with him. You told me it was us." His hand was shaking so badly the wine in his glass rippled. His face was bright red, veins popping in his neck, that same ugly mix of rage and self-pity I'd seen 100 times when we were kids and he didn't get his way. Then he looked at me, like I'd betrayed him, like I was the one who'd done something unforgivable. I just stared back. No sympathy, no words. There was nothing left to say to a man who thought he could destroy my marriage and still somehow be the victim. The silence chewed at him. Out of nowhere, he slammed the glass down on the table. It shattered, red wine spraying across the white tablecloth, over plates, onto the floor. People jumped back, chairs scraping, someone yelled. The perfect little family dinner was officially gone. While everyone's eyes were still on the broken glass and Lauren's shaking shoulders, I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been carrying all night. "Lauren," I said, voice steady. She looked up at me, mascara streaked, breathing hard, like maybe I was finally going to rescue her from the mess she'd made. The same way I'd spent years smoothing things over, keeping the peace. I laid the envelope on the table in front of her. "Here you go." She stared at it like it might explode. "What is that?" "Divorce papers," I answered. "I've already signed them." The room went dead quiet again. No coughing, no silverware, nothing. Just the hum of the AC and her ragged breathing. "I'm done," I said, cold. With the lies, with the games, with all of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The calm hurt more. For a second, she just froze. Then she let out this sharp, broken scream, grabbed her purse, and bolted from the room, heels slamming against the floor. I didn't go after her. That part of my life was already over. After she ran out, everything felt weirdly quiet, like the eye of a storm. My chest hurt, but there was something else under it now. Relief. My dad came around the table and pulled me into a hug, strong and solid. "You did what you had to do," he said into my ear. No judgment, just support. Linda stayed back, arms crossed, eyes bouncing anywhere but mine. For once, she didn't have a script ready. Maybe she realized this wasn't a scene she could spin. Lauren's parents looked wrecked. Her mom's eyes were red, her dad's jaw set tight. They each apologized to me, separately. "We had no idea," her dad said. "You didn't deserve this." My friends stayed quiet. A couple of them put a hand on my shoulder, but nobody tried to crack a joke or say, "It'll be okay." They just stayed. Sometimes that's all a man needs. No speeches, just presence. Derek was breathing heavy, face still flushed, looking like his whole little fantasy world had come crashing down. He muttered something I didn't catch and stormed out after her, leaving red footprints of spilled wine on the white cloth. I looked around at what was left of my anniversary dinner and said under my breath, mostly to myself, "This ends tonight." Driving back to the house that night, the road felt longer than it ever had. Street lights, stop signs, familiar turns. All of it looked the same, but I wasn't the same man heading home. I pulled into the driveway like I'd done 1,000 times before, cut the engine, and just sat there for a minute, fingers still wrapped around the steering wheel. Eventually, I forced myself out, walked up to the front door, and stepped into a place that didn't feel like mine anymore. The living room was quiet. Too quiet. Our wedding photo hung on the wall, me grinning like an idiot, Lauren looking at me like I was her whole world. I stared at it for a long second, then looked away. I took the divorce papers and the PI file out of my jacket and locked them in the safe in the bedroom closet. Proof, packed away. Then I sat on the stairs, halfway between upstairs and down, elbows on my knees, and let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. My phone started buzzing on the step beside me. Then again, and again. Lauren. Text after text, lighting up the dark. I didn't open her messages right away. I just sat there and watched them stack up on my lock screen like a slow-motion car crash. Eventually, curiosity won. I tapped in. "You ruined my life. I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. We could have talked in private. People got the wrong idea about me." Not one word about what she'd actually done, not a hint of remorse, just damage control and self-pity. I scrolled, jaw tight. Then she shifted tactics. "If you still care, meet me. We can fix this. You didn't have to do it in front of everyone." I set the phone down on the stair beside me, stared at it for a second, then said aloud, just to hear the truth hang in the air. "You made that choice, not me." A little while later, a new message popped up, this time from her mother. "Grayson, we're ashamed of how she treated you. We told her if she doesn't own this and make things right with you, we're cutting her off financially." So now it wasn't just me she lost. Her own parents were done too. And somehow, in her mind, I was still the villain. After that night, Lauren did what a lot of people do when the mask rips off. She ran. Word got back to me that she was staying at Chloe's apartment downtown. Fitting, in a way. One of the people she blew our marriage up for now had to watch her sit in the wreckage. Online, she went quiet. Stories gone, comments limited. The cute anniversary post she'd planned never showed up. A couple of her friends tried posting group pics like nothing happened, but you could feel the tension in every caption. Ryan vanished from her life just as fast. He suddenly stopped showing up at the gym where she'd found herself. One of my buddies who lifted there told me, "Yeah, man, he's just gone. No goodbye, no nothing." In the family group chats, rumors moved faster than any PI. Cousins whispering, aunts asking what really happened, uncles quietly taking my side without saying it out loud. And me? I went back to work. Woke up, shaved, put on my shirt, drove in, answered emails, sat in meetings. HR pulled me aside once. "You okay, Grayson?" I gave a small nod. "I will be." Once the dust settled a little, the damage control started. Not from Lauren this time, but from the other two people who helped make the mess. Linda texted my dad first. "He's overreacting. It was a mistake. These things happen. We can fix this as a family." A mistake that lasted months, maybe years. That's how she's always handled things. Minimize, smooth it over, act like anyone who refuses to swallow it is the real problem. Derek tried a different route. He reached out asking to talk man to man, like we were equals in this. Like we were just two guys who got caught in a complicated situation instead of one man who'd stabbed his own brother in the back. I didn't answer. I didn't owe him a single word. My dad showed me the messages. Then he said something I'd waited my whole life to hear him say. "There's a line you don't cross." He crossed it. For years, my name had been soft in that house. Easy to blame, easy to doubt. Not anymore. Not long after, Dad told Derek he was cut off. No more rent help, no more bailing him out. For once, consequences weren't just landing on me. They were landing where they belonged. At some point, feeling sorry for yourself turns into just being tired. That's where I was when I finally texted Lauren, short and to the point. "You've got 1 week to come get your things. If they're still here after that, they're going to the curb." No insults, no paragraphs, just terms. After I hit send, I logged into every joint account we had. Bank, credit card, streaming, utilities. Removed her name where I could, changed passwords where I couldn't, closed the useless things, secured the important ones. It felt less like revenge and more like cleaning up a spill someone else walked away from. Scott emailed me a court date. Seeing it in writing, Miller versus Miller, stung for a second, then weirdly felt like progress, a finish line, even if the race had been ugly. That night, my phone lit up a few times with her name. No doubt more guilt, more anger, more, "How could you?" I scrolled to her contact, hit silence notifications, and set the phone face down on my nightstand. For the first time since Houston, I actually slept. A few mornings later, Dad texted and asked if I wanted to grab coffee before work. We met at that same old diner, the one with the cracked vinyl booths and burnt coffee that somehow tastes better than it should. We sat there for a while without saying much. Then he cleared his throat. "I need to say something," he started. "About years ago. About how things were with Linda and Derek. I should have seen more. I should have listened sooner." He looked older in that moment, not weaker, just honest. There's a difference. I let the words sit between us. I could have unloaded. I had every right. Instead, I just nodded. "We're good," I told him. And I meant it. We stood up to leave, and instead of a quick pat on the back, we shook hands. Two grown men, not a disappointed father and a confused kid. His grip was firm, steady. As we stepped out into the parking lot, the sun was just starting to climb over the highway. He looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you, son. You didn't let them break you." For a guy like me, that sentence was worth more than any settlement. Once word got around that Dad had cut him off and Lauren was radioactive, Derek started blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, missed FaceTimes like we were buddies going through something together. When I finally picked up, he went straight in. "You should have warned me, man," he snapped. "You knew she was like that. You could have told me before I stood up in front of everybody." I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. "Warn you?" I said. "You slept with my wife in my house, Derek. You made that speech all by yourself." He doubled down, like he always does. "You made me look stupid. You let me walk into that." "No," I told him, voice flat. "You did that yourself." He started yelling then, spit in his words, all that old rage with nowhere to go. He called me names he used on me as a kid, tried to drag me back into that role. I let him rant for a minute, then cut in. "If you don't stop calling, I'm filing a harassment report. You already have a record. You really want to add to it?" Silence. He hung up. And just like that, I was done letting him take up space in my life. There's a different kind of quiet that comes when paperwork starts doing what yelling never could. Court dates, signatures, property lists. Not romantic, not dramatic, just final. One afternoon, I walked through the house with a clear purpose. First thing, I took back every key. Front door, back door, garage, changed the locks. This was my space now, not a revolving door for people who didn't respect it. Then I called the utility companies, mortgage, insurance, switched names where I needed to, removed hers where I could. It felt like pulling weeds, slow, necessary, satisfying in a way you don't appreciate until you're the one doing it. I stood in front of the wedding photos for a long minute, not to mourn, just to acknowledge. That version of me loved her with everything he had. He wasn't stupid. He was honest. I took the frames down, one by one, wiped the dust off the glass, and packed them into a box, taped it shut. No ceremony. When the last thing was put away, I ended up in the middle of the living room. No pictures, no fake memories staring back. Just walls, windows, light. I stepped outside, pulled the door closed behind me, and listened to the click of the latch. For the first time, that silence sounded good. Standing in that empty living room, I realized something simple that took me years to see. A house is just wood and drywall until there's truth inside it. Without honesty, it's not a home. It's just a place where you sleep next to a stranger. I used to think love was saying I love you every day, posting anniversary pictures, buying flowers on Fridays. Now I know it's what you do when no one's watching. It's the messages you don't send, the lines you refuse to cross. Love is action, not a slogan. And a man's honor? That isn't up for negotiation, not for sex, not for keeping the peace, not for a picture-perfect life other people clap for. A man's got to be able to look in the mirror and not see a doormat staring back. Family isn't just blood or a ring. You're allowed to choose again, to draw lines, to start over. In the end, that's what I did. I stopped trying to save a marriage that didn't want to be saved, and I took back my life. If any part of this sounds like your life, I hear you. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not too sensitive. You're a man who got lied to in the one place he was supposed to feel safe. That does something to you. Maybe your story doesn't look exactly like mine. Maybe it's not a stepbrother. Maybe it's not a trainer or a friend. But betrayal feels the same in the gut. The sleepless nights, the constant second guessing, the way your chest tightens when your phone lights up with their name. I know that feeling. If you've been there, drop your story in the comments. You don't have to use your real name, just tell it. Get it out of your head. I read this stuff, not as some guru, just as another guy with a scar he didn't ask for. And if you think this is where it all ends, it's not. Because Derek, he still hasn't finished learning his lesson. So if you want to hear how that plays out, and you don't want to walk through your own mess alone, hit subscribe, stick around, and let's walk it out together. That night started with me getting stabbed in the back in every way a man can be, as a husband, as a son, as a brother. I walked in thinking I had a home, a marriage, a family, and found out I'd really just been living in someone else's lie. But here's what I figured out the hard way. Safety isn't just locks on the door. It's knowing the person sleeping next to you is on your side. Love isn't "I love you" under a cute caption. It's loyalty when nobody's watching. And a man's esteem, his pride, his name, that's not something you hand over just to keep a fake peace. I didn't burn their lives down. I didn't throw punches or end up in cuffs. I didn't go for blind revenge. I just turned the lights on and let the truth speak for itself. A man's got limits. That was mine. If you've ever been betrayed, share your story so guys like us know we're not alone. Drop a comment, hit subscribe if this hit home for you. Because tonight, everything ended, and something better started.